Before overlanding existed, there were men who drove into a desert, still barely mapped, with petrol, water, a compass, and mathematics. Picture a Ford Model A. No GPS, no four-wheel drive, no satellite phone, no plan B. Just sun, sand, and tire pressure. And the question of whether your calculations were right. One of those men was Ralph Bagnold, an engineer, a man who thought the world in systems. In 1926, he was posted to Egypt, and something began. In his free time, he drove into the desert with fellow officers. At first, out of curiosity. Then curiosity became obsession. They had no off-road vehicles, no four-wheel drive, no specialist equipment. They had Ford Model A vehicles and territories that were little more than empty spaces on the maps. Angel began asking questions. Why does a tire dig itself in? Why does a dune migrate? Why does a compass fail inside a vehicle? Why does a few pounds of air pressure decide between moving on and standing still? Questions like these shaped the way he saw the desert. Bagnold saw the desert as a system. Water, hours, chances. When a vehicle gets stuck in the scorching heat of the desert starts counting. The first weakness was right beneath the tires, and every system has its weaknesses. A vehicle drives into soft sand, the tire loses grip, the weight sinks. The vehicle is stuck. In the desert, that is not a minor inconvenience. It is a matter of life and death. Bagnold and his companions searched for a solution. Some kind of ramp that could get their Ford vehicles out of the sand. And then they found steel channels in a scrapyard in Cairo. Originally, these steel profiles were roofing material, shelters left over from the First World War. What the military saw as a piece of building material became, in the desert, unsticking gear. You dug a small channel in front of the rear wheels, laid the steel tracks into it, gave the tire something to grip, and got the vehicle moving again. Simple and brilliant. That was the birth of one of the most important and iconic recovery tools you will find on any expedition vehicle today. Anyone with sand channels on their rig means business. And in that lay Bagnold's true strength. Simple, efficient, and affordable solutions. And every time I pull my Max Tracks off the roof of my Hilux to unstick myself, I think of these early pioneers. He saw a problem, broke it down, and looked for something that worked. The stuck vehicle, the problem was the sand beneath the tires. But in the desert, there is another problem, one that begins far more quietly. You can drive, you can have fuel, you can even get out of the sand again. You lose your direction, every movement becomes dangerous. Because in the open desert, every horizon starts to look the same. That brings us to one of Bagnold's perhaps most elegant inventions, the sun compass. A sand channel solved the problem beneath the tire. The sun compass solved a different problem. The problem in front of the vehicle. Direction. No road, no signposts, no trees to navigate by. Just sand, light, and a line on the map. A standard magnetic compass was unreliable inside a vehicle. Too much metal. Engine, body, tools, weapons, radios. All of it could shift the needle. Bagnold's answer was, again, typical of him. Simple, logical, calculable. He built a compass that did not orient by the magnetic field. It oriented by the sun. Sun compass looked almost unassuming. A round disc, a degree scale. In the center, a small vertical pin. That pin cast a shadow. And because the position of the sun at any given time is calculable, you could use the date, the time, and your position to determine exactly where the light was coming from. The shadow became the needle. The sun became the compass. Today we have GPS, offline maps, satellite communication, small devices that tell us where we are almost anywhere. Navigation is the reading and understanding of the landscape. Where is the sun? How long is the shadow? What direction is my vehicle holding? How far have I driven? Whoever travels out there must be able to read the sky. 2 problems solved. 1 remained. How do you move a vehicle through sand that wants to swallow it? Bagnold recognized, as early as the 1930s, the enormous role that tire pressure plays in sand. A hard tire cuts into the ground. A softer tire distributes the weight across a larger surface. The vehicle begins to float on the sand rather than cutting into it. Today, this is basic knowledge for every desert driver. Back then, it was an insight born from experience, observation, and many kilometers through soft sand. But Bagnold did not stop at tire pressure. He also shaped driving techniques that still hold in the desert today. You drive a dune with momentum. Too slow, and the vehicle starves on the climb. Too fast, and the crest becomes dangerous. Because many dunes fall away steeply on the other side. So, read the dune. Choose the right gear. Approach straight. Hold the momentum. And feel what the vehicle is doing before the crest. Going up, you need momentum. Going down, you need traction. The brake quickly becomes your enemy when it locks the wheels and pushes sand in front of the tires. Many of these principles sound obvious today, but they were shaped by people who did not know this landscape from tutorials. They knew it from dust, heat, mistakes, and experience. Today, this is taught in every off-road driving school. I wonder if they still know who they owe that knowledge to. In the early 1930s, Bagnold became one of the most important pioneers of motorized desert exploration. In 1932, he and his team achieved the first documented east-to-west crossing of the Libyan desert in motor vehicles, in a Ford Model A. The driver had become a researcher, and experience had become method. The war, LRDG and the SAS. The world stood in flames once more. Suddenly, Bagnold's knowledge was no longer a private passion. It had become militarily valuable. In 1940, he was back in Egypt. He was meant to go to East Africa, but his troop transport collided in the Mediterranean and had to put in for repairs. So Bagnold found himself back in 1940, where his knowledge was needed, at the edge of the desert. Italy had entered the war. The deserts of North Africa became a theatre of war. Bagnold proposed to General Wavell a small, fast, motorized unit, a force that could push deep into the desert, far behind enemy lines. From that idea, the Long-Range Desert Group was born. The LRDG was no ordinary unit. It was expedition, navigation, mechanics, and warfare on wheels. Their strength lay in patience, navigation, range, and the knowledge of how to move through a landscape that remained closed to other units. That is precisely why they became so vital to another young unit, the Special Air Service. The SAS under David Stirling wanted to go deep behind enemy lines, strike airfields, and vanish before the enemy could respond. But to get there, you needed more than courage. You needed men who could find the way. The SAS had a fond name for the LRDG, one they always spoke with the deepest respect. Libyan Desert Taxi Service. The LRDG carried commandos behind the lines, brought them back out, and gave them something no barracks could teach: orientation in the emptiness. Whoever rode with the LRDG learned how to think in the desert, how to navigate, how to handle sand, tire pressure, water, range, and direction. And behind that experience stood Bagnold's thinking. After the war, Bagnold returned to research. He stayed true to what had driven him before the war: sand, movement, and the question of why landscapes changed their form. Desert sand became sediment, sand in the wind, sand in water, grains that roll, bounce, collide, gather, and fall apart again. Bagnold studied how material is moved by flow, in dunes, rivers, along coastlines, and on the ocean floor. His work became the foundation of modern sediment science. His name endured in formulas, technical terms, and even on Mars. There, a dune field carries his name, the Bagnold Dunes. In the end, Bagnold was far more than the founder of an unusual unit in the Second World War. From experience, method. From sand, science. Bagnold began with tires in desert sand and ended with fundamental laws of how grains move. What he discovered still lives in every expedition vehicle today. Ralph Bagnold died in 1990. He was 93 years old. He lived to see people walk on the moon. He never stopped thinking about sand. Today, a dune field carries his name, the Bagnold Dunes. A man who drove a Ford Model A into empty maps and left behind laws that hold on other planets. So the next time you let the air out of your truck's tires, think of the man who, nearly 100 years ago, drove his Ford Model A through the desert. Because he figured that out for us. Bagnold was not alone. At the same time, just further west, two Frenchmen were loading their Citroëns. Georges-Marie Hart, Louis Audouin Dubreuil. Their goal? Across Africa. Not on roads, on everything else. If this story added something, a like helps more than you'd think. And if you want to be there when Hart and Dubreuil load their Citroëns, subscribe. We'll be back.